Who do we have here?
This is Winnie.
Winnie the Pooh.
So, sorry, I got confused because we actually have a golden retriever who's coming in for board and train, who's named Winnie the Pooh.
Oh,
So I was like, did Maria get the...
no, I might have just
Could
put
be,
Winnie on
because
there.
we were supposed to be here at 6:30.
Yes.
But we switched to 5.
You switched earlier, yeah. Thank you for doing that, by the way.
Yeah.
Okay, so Winnie the Pooh, clearly under stress, it seems like. I see a little bit of anxiety here. So go me and fill me in on this one.
Okay, we rescued her from a coworker where she was kind of being a little bit neglected and left in a cage at all times. Was being underfed, became really rambunctious. She couldn't take care of her, so I said I would take care of her.
Okay.
When we first got her, she had never been to the vet, never had anything done. This was 5 months ago. She was 9 months old.
Okay.
Took her in, got everything up to date. She was not spayed. We have a beagle and a lab mix.
Okay.
So the beagle asserted his dominance and would yelp at her and go at her when we first got her. And everything was fine. They got along okay. A couple weeks ago, actually a month and a half ago, we were at the dog park. She was fine there, big fetch. When we're at the dog park, she does not go by other dogs. She kind of stays away from him, hides from him, comes to my feet and says, "Hey, Dad, get them away from me."
Sure.
Not really interactionable. So I was playing fetch with her. She had her water at my feet underneath the table I was sitting at. I don't know what happened. I turn around and she has grabbed my beagle by the feet. So I don't know if she was feeling threatened or something was about him that scared her. So that was her first reaction. Took her to the vet, took the beagle to the vet, everything was okay, took care of it. Then about a week and a half later, I was sitting outside cooking. She was at a gate in front of me, staring up at me, and I said, stay there. The beagle walks around from the back. She corners out like this, turns side eyes, and I see just all of a sudden jerk reaction, and I try to jump in and stop it. He got her again right here. So we've had them separated for a while.
Sure.
We're slowly trying to reintegrate them, but the beagle is very timid. She has when the beagle's around, she doesn't go looking for the beagle. She doesn't attack. Nothing. Like she saw the beagle,
she
wagged
doesn't
her
want to be
tail.
around him either. Like today, like he's sitting on the couch behind me, and she like comes in the room, but then kind of like she's not. She doesn't know what to do, and he's scared at this point. I think he's uncomfortable.
Sure.
But on leash, when I walk her with another dog, when I walk her and the other dog, we just walk perfect fine together. Nothing about that. If she sees another dog on leash, she goes crazy.
Also dog reactivity.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
If we're in the car and she sees another dog outside,
It's insane.
absolutely hand go in. But when she's off leash at a park,
She doesn't want
she wants
anything to do.
zero to do with another
And
dog.
we've taken her to doggy daycare, and they told us, so we were like trying to get her integrated. So at first we brought her a lab because she's really close, like she really loves her. And so we brought her, and basically my lab, she keeps to herself. She could care less, like she's 9, she could care less, and she kind of just was following her. So then we tried last week, just her. And I called at like noon, and I was like, hey, I just want to like check on her. I know like Lily's not there, I just want to make sure. And they were like, yeah, she's kind of just like sitting at her feet, like not really doing anything, doesn't really want to like interact. So we were kind of like, this isn't really helping her either. We've been doing like obedience training too. We thought it was more of a behavioral training, but it's been more of just like sit,
The general commands. It's not going to help. I actually have her on anti-anxiety medication right now.
Okay.
I asked the vet to prescribe me some, and they said they did, and we just did a follow-up visit for her blood work. Her blood work came back fine, and she's reacting well to it.
Sure.
But she like seems to have some type of reaction to, I don't know if it's just male dogs or like hyper dogs. Like she gets, like if she's on leash and she's around those type of dogs, she does not want them coming near her. Like, no, so I don't know, because his mom has a male dog, that's the only reason why I say that. And she doesn't like him either. So it's like a very weird reaction to these 2 dogs, which they're both in our lives, so we have to kind of deal with both of them. And so we don't want to get rid of her, but we kind of want to figure out
You need a solution.
We need
like an actual solution instead of like obedience training. Like we need like behavioral
Sure.
aggression training so that
She's very attached to us. When we leave, she freaks out.
yeah, she has separation anxiety, she pees in the house, she's been tearing up her cushions, like she's the whole
But
thing.
when we're around, she's perfectly
She's
fine.
perfectly fine, yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, we just gave you a mouthful.
No, man, that's all good stuff. So let's go back to, you first bring her home 9 months. You have a beagle and you have a lab, correct?
Mhm.
And when you brought home Winnie and the beagle, you said was asserting himself and then like snapping at her neck, was it?
Just growling and barking
Like
at her,
barking.
never bit her though.
Yeah.
Okay, so just barking at her.
Yeah,
And she got scared and she'd quiver away and run away.
like her tail would go between her, you know, she was. like-
Sure, and how long did that last for?
He did it probably for, I'd say like maybe 2 weeks.
Okay.
And so we were sleeping in the living room, like on a couch where we basically, I would have him and he would have her. Like we were trying to keep them apart to figure it out. And then just one day it was like, they seemed to be getting along and like sat on the couch together and didn't have a
And
reaction.
they slept right next to each other a couple times.
So then we were like, oh, okay, like they're fine now. And then
Okay.
this happened.
So then within the home, you know, after those 2 weeks you said,
Mhm.
resolves, right? And then fast forward to a month and a half ago,
Mhm.
and then we get the incident at the dog park. You're at a table, there's a bowl of water at your feet,
And her tennis.
Tennis ball.
and a
yeah.
tennis ball, and then the beagle, and the next thing you know, she's on the beagle.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay. So, and then the second time, you're grilling.
Yeah, I was outside grilling, I was sitting there talking to her.
Good. Okay, and then the beagle comes in, and you see her kind of remove herself, and then you see the movement. Okay. Sounds like resource guarding. Because in both instances, there's a resource. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Well, but then there's the water, the tennis ball, and the food that you're grilling.
Mhm.
Okay, which is, if it is that, that's a completely separate thing.
Mhm.
Okay, but it started, from what it sounds like to me, unresolved tension,
Mhm.
and that's why there's awkwardness since then between them again.
Yeah.
So, this is, from what I'm understanding here, I'm gonna explain it to you, this is just my theory
Mhm.
of why we're seeing what we're seeing. In terms of the outside stuff, resource guarding is very simple. If a dog has a ball and feels it's theirs, and when I go to take it, they guard it, right? It's instinctual.
Mhm.
But if I remove myself, the dog will literally flip a switch and like not care anymore.
Mhm.
Does that make sense? Because there's no competition for that ball anymore.
Mhm.
I'm not a threat. So dogs are very much like a light switch,
Mhm.
okay? So that is its own thing.
Mhm.
So if that's the case, in my opinion, it's easy because it's context,
Mhm.
okay? The difficult part about when I get dogs fighting within the home, which I don't feel like you have,
Mhm.
okay, from what I'm hearing, is I have a client right now whose dogs started actively fighting each other.
Mhm.
And they couldn't come back into a room with each other because they go right into let's kill each other.
Mhm.
So it was clear tension.
Mhm.
So that's more difficult
Mhm.
because it's kind of repairing the relationship, but at the same time, you don't go back to normalcy,
Mhm.
okay? Everybody wants Jesse, we want to go pre-fight when the dogs love each other. And I go, I get that, but unfortunately for dogs, if there's not someone setting clear boundaries each time, all the time, it almost always reverts back to a fight.
Mhm.
And I had recently, actually just early, like pre-COVID, a client that I work with, a couple years ago, 3 years ago, dogs were doing great, and then COVID hit, dog fight. Okay? It happens. But the thing is, like, when we talk, like, I have 2 brothers and a sister, we fought several times growing up, right? I got in physical, like, fist fights with my brothers
Mhm.
when we were all old, right, older. But we punch, and we kick, right, and we wrestle.
Yeah.
We don't bite.
Correct.
And that's what makes things tricky for people.
Mhm.
So really, for the dogs, they're like, this is what we do.
Right.
But for people, it's like, but yeah, it's a vet devil.
Yeah.
And all this other stuff, you know what I mean? So, so I don't feel like you have that quite. I really think it is resource-based,
Mhm.
okay? Which is easier. However, you do have to be mindful, because I had another client,
Mhm.
same issue, and we resolved it, okay? Fast forward a year, and the dogs got in a fight because someone dropped an aluminum foil to use that cannon that they were cooking or smoking in the grill, fight.
Yeah.
And then they ended up rehoming the other dog because they're like, we can't live like this, which is, that's their decision. But I was like, but you did so well preventing, you know, with resources and stuff, and it happened. And that's of course their thing, right? That it's like, if you can't do this, then you can't be there. If you can't be like that aware, then yes, I would say,
Yeah.
sure, right? So it's not like they give a dog a rescue, they found the home, and
Yeah.
they see the dog on occasion and stuff. But in your case, if it is around the resource guarding, it just makes things a bit easier because we know what it's gonna be or when we can foresee it or potentially see it, so we just try to avoid it. So when it comes to resource guarding, I assume things. People tend to go by, is this gonna be a problem? And I just go like, this might be a problem, so I'm just gonna be a step ahead and not allow it to happen, okay? So like, you know, let's say we're grilling again and we see that same scenario start to build up, then I either remove her from the situation or address the beagle before he even enters, because it's only gonna be a problem the moment she feels competition for what's immediately there. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's like really teaching boundaries, or I go, I'm gonna grill, I'm gonna shut the door, and I'm only gonna keep one dog out with me. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So that's very simple stuff.
Yeah.
Where things might get trickier is in that situation when a water bowl, tennis ball, it's not common for a dog to guard water. It could have been over the toy. Doesn't mean that dogs don't guard water. You know, I'm just trying. It's like, but then again, being aware of like, okay, where's the beagle? Where's Winnie? Okay, where's the water? Where's the ball? I'm gonna remove the ball.
Yeah.
Not worry about that. If you leave water out because they're thirsty, whatever, that's okay. But you can also put water on your control, where you bring it out momentarily, have some water, you keep the beagle at bay. You're done. Get out of here. Now I give the beagle water, and then I put the water away. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
In those situations where you can. Okay, so that part for me, and there's other stuff that we can do. That's the easiest. Doesn't require training. It just means being more aware and being proactive about things that we handle around the dogs.
Right.
Okay. When it comes to actually addressing resource guarding, okay, I cannot make her like or accept another dog entering when there's some kind of valuable at hand, like in the space.
So I got a question, not trying to stop you.
Sure.
I've noticed that sometimes if I'm on the couch and I have her by me and the beagle has walked in, she will look over and growl
Yeah. Resource guarding.
to me.
You. Correct.
I was gonna say, I feel like it's totally him.
And it could be too. Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
the other time, it was my mom's dog.
Mhm.
We were on the couch together outside,
Mhm.
and she walked up, and I heard her growl
Yep.
and about to attack, and I quickly grabbed. and
Yeah,
I
we
said,
grabbed
"Stop."
her quick, but she like definitely was feeling threatened
Yeah.
somehow.
So then you for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, which is not uncommon either, okay? A resource for a dog doesn't have to always be, or being territorial, you know? It can be an object, it can be the home, it can be the person, it can be their personal space, it can be a dog bed, it can be any number of things. So knowing that actually makes things a lot easier, then yes, right?
Yeah.
But right there, like, have you seen other contexts where it happens and there's no tension, or is it guaranteed if you're there with Winnie and dog enters, it's gonna be an issue?
For Tillman, there's been many times where Tillman's entered and she's right by me and she has done nothing.
Okay.
But I don't know if it's
Zero.
more of like approaching, you know what I mean, like the couch we were sitting on, like Bo was right here. You know what I mean, we were sitting right here and she was literally right here. So I don't know if it's like the closer they get that she feels, like,
Well, yeah.
you know what I mean? Like I feel like also because she's had kind of beef with those two dogs, like maybe she's even more on high alert because.
Yeah, there's unresolved.
Yeah, but she
Tension.
still has that tension with them, yeah.
Yeah. So that makes a lot of sense, right? Now, it's kind of trying to decipher, like you said, there's been several times where you've had that happen and there is no tension. So then it's trying to find the common ground of when there is tension, what is it,
Yeah.
right? So in those two you had noted, I noted other resources. In those other two instances, you noted she was just in your immediate space at your side, right? So then I might think, when the other dog entered, how did they enter? Were they high energy or were they calm?
Calm.
Calm, okay.
Yeah, he's old.
When they entered, was it, where at least the entrance is it from the side, or is it like a direct line of sight?
So the second one was a side. The first one, I couldn't tell you.
Okay.
I was sitting there talking to someone else. She was at my feet. I'm pretty sure he came up, Tillman came up from the front or the right side of her. And that's when she,
Launched or?
whatever happened.
Sure. Proximity, yes, is a big factor, you know. So all that's good to know. So that there, if we take that, so essentially the same thing with the resource guarding, but I can't make her like when other dogs come into the space. Okay, so how I work with that is one, you're being proactive, and it's like, I know she's gonna guard me. If you get her to leave the space, there's nothing to guard anymore. Okay. Two, well, what happens if a dog enters and you're unaware, because you're distracted watching TV or something, and she's aware? Okay, is what I teach is a default, how to say, relinquish of space. Okay, so like, which means we would teach her when the dog enters, she just automatically has to leave you. The cue isn't a verbal move, it's a visual, beagle's coming in, I need to clear out of here. So by removing herself, there's nothing to guard. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, ultimately, and I do that as a fail-safe, okay? Because everybody wants the guarantee. There's no guarantees. You know, it's a dog, it's behavior. It's the more consistent you are, then the more consistent responses you're going to get. But people aren't typically that consistent. Okay. So I teach the default relinquish as a fail-safe. Oh, the owner forgot on the 100th time to remove their dog. So then that response of like, I need to leave here because I've been taught to do so when I see the beagle approaching 6 feet, kicks in. Does that make sense?
100%.
So it's like we're driving a car, you know, like let's say they put in like emergency brakes that just go off by themselves. It's your job to stop your car, right? But on that 100th time, if you like turn or on your phone or something, they kick in for you, is how I would think of that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's like a Tesla in the 100.
There you go. Right? What's nice is that we can plan ahead with these things, okay? So when we talk about obedience and we talk about behavior, you're correct, they're two different things. I look at obedience as like education and behavior as morality. So like matching with science, sit, stay, come, don't lie, don't steal, don't cheat, don't jump, don't bark, don't bite. Does that make sense? So you can have someone who's very smart but not be a nice person, and then someone who's not the smartest but could be the nicest person, right? Those things do not correlate. Same thing with dog training, right? I've had plenty of dogs that knew several tricks and great commands and all that stuff, but were terribly behaved. You know, reactive, aggressive, nervous, anxious, all that stuff. And the owner's like, but my dog is so smart. I'm like, intelligence has nothing to do with handling stress and emotions and all that stuff, okay? So the other approach to this is preventative control, okay? And that's where, you know, and I'm not sure if they went over this with you, like in terms of teaching commands, like, well, how do you use this in the context of like dogs that like, you know, are fighting? So to give you an example, the two that I mentioned earlier that I'm currently working with, we first started with leash walking, okay? And I know the problem is behavior, but they had no training, no formal discipline, at least discipline that dogs understand. So do you know what dog discipline looks like?
Like on when you're walking, or?
Like when dogs discipline each other, what does that look like?
I don't know.
You've seen it.
They attack. They bark.
They bite.
They bite, yeah.
They nip, they bite, you know, they bark. So the beagle, when she first came in, barking at her, like setting boundaries, whatever it was, like Katie, I don't really like you, right? Exactly. But then we create a situation where she's like, this is my owner, and I don't like how close you're approaching us. So I'm gonna correct you, and you're gonna think twice about how close you can next
That does
time.
make a lot of sense.
Okay? That's dog discipline. So human discipline is no, go to your kennel, right? Dogs don't do that with each other. They bite each other.
Right.
Okay, very simple. So essentially, you have to communicate in their language. So in that case with the two
Do I
dogs,
have to bite them?
yes, exactly. On all fours, growl and bite. I've actually had clients who had trainers tell them to growl at their dog.
No way.
Yes, I swear. Okay, I will not tell you to do that. But we want to mimic that as best as we can, okay? So with these two dogs, you know, I train with e-collar, okay? Is I know the problem was fighting in the home, okay? And most people think, oh, Jesse's gonna come over and the dog's gonna fight and then he's gonna work his magic and then we stop the fight.
Yeah.
And I go, that's the worst way to do it.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah, we don't want that.
What we did is we worked with each dog individually. We gave formal discipline and I used the heel concept. Okay, so my style of walking is very different than probably every trainer in Chicago's style of walking or every owner's. I take one step, they take one step. I take 5 steps, you take 5 steps.
That's how I
When I stop,
train my golden Marines to have.
you automatically sit. That's very strict, okay? Completely slack leash, up to no leash if the owner wants. I don't care what the environment is, okay? I don't care if you're walking through Afraid of Dogs. I don't care if you're at Oz Park. I don't care if you're at Home Depot. I don't care if it's within the neighborhood. Boom, right here. That level of discipline, and it's not the obedience that's helping. It was the remoting, it was the biting, because think of the remote as a bite and a button, okay? It was all that discipline, okay? And then I said, after I think it was like the second week or maybe the beginning of the third, because they were working with them separately, and I said, now you're gonna walk them together again. Because that's how we build relationships with dogs, is we walk them together, okay? And then by the 4th session, we went into a home or Zoom session, where I was like, and mind you, the dogs hadn't seen each other since everything had went down. Because when they tried it, it was just jumping into the fight. They didn't do anything. The owner was like, holy shit. They're like, every other time we brought the dogs in, they were at each other's throats. And they're walking in, and nothing's happening. And I said, yes. This was the purpose of the discipline first, put them in a different mental state. Because before they never had physical discipline.
Yeah.
Okay, so put them in a different state, but then when they would force them to be together, you would see the awkwardness, like they would be facing away from each other, laying down. They wanted nothing to do with each other. And I told them, there's still clear tension and distrust, but now what we're gonna do is make this happen all the time. They can only stay awkward for so long. And at some point, they start to ease up and relax a bit, but then I told them, going forward, you have to be in control and aware of what's going on, because very much like when you said when she was here and a dog would enter, an issue would be if one dog was on the bed or on the couch, on the blanket, if the other dog walked by. And we recreated that, nothing happened. But I was like, that's not real. Like, real is when you're in the kitchen and you're at your desk,
Directed, yeah.
right? That's organic.
Yeah.
So I was like, now what we do is we leave them with leashes, muzzles, e-collars, and you let life happen. And then when you start and you want to be aware of, oh, they're walking near each other, you just look, you ready, nothing happens, back to life, right? Until we have enough successes where it's like, okay, cool, we can start to relax a bit. In other cases, the owner has to have complete control in order for the dogs to coexist, like they're always doing something on the owner's cue, because it's just not going to go back to normalcy, okay? So here, for her, I know you've done obedience, but in order to do behavioral work with the remote collar, she has to know what it means, okay? E-collar is not natural to dogs. Are you familiar with what an e-collar is?
No, I was gonna ask you.
So have you ever been to a physical therapist or a chiropractor?
No.
No. Have you ever had stim therapy?
Is that with the needle?
No, it's when they put the circles.
No, I've had needles.
Okay,
But
so.
The cupping stuff is what you're talking about?
No, so cupping is something different. There's these circles with wires,
Oh, I know what you're talking about now. Okay,
Yes.
I know what you're talking about.
and it moves your muscle, okay? So it causes a muscle contraction. So it's electric, but not electricity is how I phrase it to people. That's an e-collar,
Got it.
okay? So people typically think of e-collar as a taser. They think they're electrocuting their dog, like sticking your finger in an outlet.
Yeah.
That's not the case at all, okay? It's a centralized muscle contraction. There's 2 probes that make contact with the neck, and then right there, you would see the twitch happening, okay? So they use technology on people. You can actually go to Walgreens, go in the back section, and you'll see like the icy hot and stuff or whatever, but then you'll see it's TENS, and it looks like a little bone, and they'll say, eases back pain and stuff like that, that's an e-collar, okay? So if you go online or whatever, you'll hear like the word shock collar, and they'll say you're torturing your dog, and it's abusive and stuff like that. Those people are stupid, okay? One, they're just using language to deter you from using the tool, and they'll say like, you're electrocuting your dog. Well, I just told you not electrocution, because they use the technology on people, you know? And they used to relieve back pain, breaking up scar tissue on muscles. So like I had a client who had a scar tissue on her muscles, on her upper shoulders here, and she used to do the TENS unit, and they would move the muscles to break up that scar tissue. If you've like not used your arm in a really, really long time, like you're not just gonna get up and be all strong, they use this machine to help get your muscles working again, to build that strength, okay? They use it in sports rehabilitation therapy. So it's just terminology, of course, to turn away the public from using these tools. And then they try to sell you on positive reinforcement, which just doesn't work, okay? Now, I'm not against positive reinforcement. I use it for puppies under 6 months because it's great for puppies. But once we get into the real world where there's squirrels and rabbits and other dogs and distractions and loud sounds and things, food goes out the window, okay? So here, in terms of like what you're trying to achieve with Winnie, like what are your goals?
We want to be able to have our beagle back in our house full-time. We also want them to be able to coexist.
He works.
He's at his sister's house.
I got it.
Wow, man, you got your dog's working for you.
Is this slide pulled over?
And I think we just want them to be able to coexist. Like, they don't need to be best friends. They don't need to be like, I just want her to feel comfortable, and I feel like she's still not fully, like, she loves us, but she's not fully comfortable with any dog.
I want her to be able to walk next to me, and when she sees a squirrel, when she sees another dog next to me, walking in the car, anywhere, I don't want her to go haywire like she does.
Okay.
Our goals are totally different.
No, I'm
No, I think he's saying in addition
No,
to.
In addition to that.
He's like, forget about the beagle. Why
I know.
The beagle's old, this doesn't even
Well, and the thing with the beagle is too, is the beagle's really attached to me, so it also makes it a little weird, like I'm his kind of
Sure.
end all be all, so it's kind of like, then you have the extreme of like she's attached to him, and then you have him attached to me, so it's,
But does he throw a fit when you leave?
no, he's old enough
No,
now.
he
where
doesn't.
He
She
doesn't
throws
care.
a fit
She
when
throws
we
a
leave.
fit when we leave, yeah.
That's the stuff that matters.
She'll tear apart the house now. We've had her.
Yeah, we're at our wits' end with that.
She ripped apart our couch. It's an old couch, so I'm not like, super upset about
No.
it.
Sure, but she's still
But she
Yeah,
still ripped it
sure.
apart.
But that's new,
She
that's
just
like
broke my remote
within,
control, so I can't watch TV anymore.
Sure.
but that's like the couch thing, like was in the last 2 weeks, like literally, so it's like.
Yeah, and so, I mean, it's a problem that's starting to,
Escalate.
yeah.
Right.
So, and the lab, how's the lab?
She's
9.
great.
How old is she?
She's 9.
Oh, sorry,
Yeah.
sorry. I
And
thought-
those two, no problem.
No problem at all.
She loves her. She plays with her. She paws her head. She sits by her all the time. When she gets attention, she comes and steals it. She bites her mouth, like, just playfully, like.
But
And how-
she's super gentle with our lab.
And how's the beagle?
He's 11.
11, okay. And you've never seen any tension with the lab?
No.
No,
Not
no.
one.
Even when those same contacts pop up?
No,
She has her own bone that she chews on. It's only hers. The lab walked over
and took
and
it.
took it.
And she
And
didn't,
she looked at her and goes, okay, and she just let her be.
Sure.
like, no reactive.
So there was a resource guardian towards the beagle only.
Yeah, and that happens.
Because we went at the dog park. Another dog has gone and stolen her ball before.
And she's not done anything.
Sure.
Dogs have come up to me. Nothing happened. She runs away from them. But
Sure.
it's the beagle that she guards
Yeah.
against that resource.
And that's not uncommon. So like, the example I give to people is like, let's say like, I have guys that I've known for like more than half my life. They can come over, look at my fridge, grab a beer or whatever, like I don't care. Right? But then if I had like a friend that I just met like a couple of weeks ago, I'm like, hey, come over, like, watch the game or something. And they went in my fridge just as they came in, first thing, I'm like, yo, like, hey, we're
You do
friends, but we're not that, we're not that
I do
close.
that. Hey, don't touch my beer, bro. My best thing about, yeah, sure, go ahead.
You know, yeah, so same thing for dogs, right?
Okay.
Care with some, don't care with others. Okay, now, I do want to just make you aware that it doesn't mean that that can't change.
Okay, no, I got that.
Yeah, I'm always like, the assumption is probably not gonna happen, but I always like to look,
There's
be
always an
aware,
option.
be a step ahead, so that if it's about to happen, or I see the signs for it, I can address it, ideally before anything does, okay? So, the hardest part of all this is just again, just normalcy, okay? The other thing is, I know it seemed like it was resolved, but the beagle was harassing her for the first couple of weeks. And then you guys essentially just let it resolve itself. And that's why I don't do that kind of stuff, is I resolve it for the dogs. Okay, so like growing up, I had two brothers and sister. If we got in a fight, my mom didn't let us resolve it. She's like, yeah, you're not gonna do that, and you're gonna cut that, and you're gonna give your brother back that, and you are gonna shut up and go over there. Done.
Yeah.
Right? So what happens with dogs a lot of times when people let them resolve it themselves is it escalates to a bigger problem because they're resolving it themselves. And I've come into homes with dead dogs. Okay? Because they're like, we're letting the dogs handle these things, and it never ended up to anything bad. I'm like, until the day it did. Is how I just look at that stuff. Okay? Because for humans, like, if someone stole something from me, I wouldn't just go catch him and kill him and take my thing back. I go to jail for that, right? In the dog world, they have that primal law, right? If the dog feels like, yeah, I'm gonna have to just remove you from the planet so I don't have to worry about you, because they don't worry about, am I gonna get arrested? Am I gonna get life in prison for this? You know, that's human stuff, okay? So if I would have brought home a new dog and my dogs aren't accepting, but I don't need them to love each other, but like you said, coexist. Is if I saw any tension like barking, I would have corrected the beagle for that. Okay? But then if I saw her then take advantage because she saw me correct the beagle, and she's like, oh, cool. You stopped the beagle from barking at me, so now I'm gonna harass the beagle, then I would have corrected her. So I'm creating that harmony, right? Where it's like, you don't like you, that's fine, you don't like, fine, but we're gonna just not do these things.
And that's what happened. That's literally what happened. The beagle did that, and then you would tend to him kind of, and then we kind of let her be because we didn't think she was the problem.
Sure.
And then she came back and she attacked him one time within the time that we were away for COVID, and she bit his tail, and I was like, what the fuck? And I screamed because he was in the bathroom, and then she wouldn't let him go, and I was like, it freaked me out because I didn't know what to do. So I'm like screaming to get her off, and then it wasn't that crazy of us, and then that happened, and then it didn't happen again until this, the month.
So let's go to that tail thing. Was it like he was trying to address her, and then she got tired of it?
No, we were in the kitchen, and I know with food, so I think I just happened to drop something, and I went to grab it, and they had already kind of like, she was here, he was there, and then his back was turned where I grabbed him kind of, because I think he kind of growled or something, and I grabbed him, and she came up behind him and was biting his tail, and I was like,
so
what the fuck?
possessed the whatever drop?
I did. Oh, and then Tillman went to go for it, yeah.
Which is the beagle?
Yeah.
Gotcha. And then from there, okay, cool.
But she saw me go to him to discipline, yell at him because he growled at her, and she came in and then was, and like this, where my back's to her, I have this whole thing, and I was like, freaked out, but then I was like, all right, there was food, so then I was like, it was the food thing, that's the way that I took it away from that, was it was the food, that was the problem.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's not a coincidence, again, that there was that there, right? So, of course, there are going to be multiple resources that can be guarded, but that's good to know.
Yeah.
Okay? So yeah, that's how dogs resolve things. Okay? So the way I would go about handling this case is, again, I know what our goal is. It would start the same way. She needs formal healing. Okay? We start with that. It's usually a 2-week process. Okay? Then we have to go into reintegrating. The best way to reintegrate dogs is through walking. How are your older dogs with? Are they still
They don't know commands. They can sit, but they don't.
But will they just walk though?
Oh yeah, they'll just
walk.
They'll totally just walk. Winnie, come on.
So getting them to just walk together, rebuild that relationship. Okay, that's one thing. But then coming back into the home, and we have to work on. So if we have Winnie here, and the beagle walks in, what happens? Right? Being more aware. Now it's possible, rare but possible, that once you smack her around a little bit, meaning with the e-collar and just discipline, and she's like, holy crap, I didn't know this existed, right? You can see a shift, it's called in that brain, right? Like those 2 dogs, right? I said, all right, bring them in. And they're expecting like, this is gonna be bad,
Yeah.
and then nothing happened. I'm like, cool, like that's how we're planning for it to work. Now we have to watch for these other things, right?
Yeah.
So like, let's say, for example, you have Winnie, you could walk in with Tillman, and she could care less about the situation. You walk him around, she just doesn't care. Then I go, okay, well, it's possible because of discipline, she's just like more subdued, or it was just one of those many times that she didn't care, okay? So at that point, it's trying to revisit organic life and just like let things be, but at the same time, you're aware of like, okay, Tillman's entering the room, I now need to look at Winnie. I have to watch for signs of tension,
Yeah.
okay? So like, let's say Winnie, Tillman walks in, and you see that posture,
Yeah.
right? It's obviously very threatening.
Yeah.
Is I don't go, what is she gonna do? Is she getting lunch or not lunch?
Yeah.
I correct right there,
Yeah.
right? Use the remote collar, boom.
Yeah.
She doesn't care anymore.
Yeah.
Okay, there's a shift from what are you doing entering to like, okay, sorry,
Yeah.
none of my business.
Yeah.
Okay, the next degree would, if you did create this, Tillman coming in here, that would be very hard,
Yeah.
Yes.
okay? Because now she's gonna go under stress.
Yeah.
And she goes, okay, I saw you coming in, and that wasn't allowed, and now you're here,
Yeah.
okay? Is that I would predict possible escalation here, so you have to watch that scenario very, very closely.
Yeah.
That's where things like muzzles come into play, okay? So, in order for us to correct behaviors, you technically, one, have to allow it to happen, or two, allow it to happen as close as you can, okay? So like when I get dogs that bite people coming into the home, like we walk in with bodysuits, we go, come at me girl, dog comes biting, we have the e-collar on, we can correct the dog as they're actively biting, get them to release, keep walking around, go and touch them, you know, doing all these things to provoke the biting. So we go, you tried it, didn't work. That's one aspect of it. Then I go, obviously your guests are gonna have bite suits. So now you're gonna muzzle your dog, because we did address it, the full scope of what the dog can do, is now when you have your guest come over, we see what happens. Guest comes over, walks by, 30 minutes goes by, great, no problem, hour goes by, no problem, and all of a sudden, the guest gets up and walks to the kitchen. And then the dog lunges, because everything settled. So there's a reset. Dog lunges, dog's got a muscle on, owner corrects the dog goes, shit, can't do that, walks away. You see that? So there's no risk to the other person of getting bit. But at the same time, you're trying to go back to what life would look like in order to get to that degree, okay? Now, the problem with that is, at some point, you know, depending on the case, muzzle would go away, right? In some of my cases, I just told a person it's too much of a liability, like just have it there as a secondary precaution, like we trust the dog's not gonna do anything, but it's too much of a liability, right? Is if you like do this for, you know, months and you're like, we've not seen any tension ever since we started all the training, and there's been no lunging, and we've seen all the situations happen where like she's next to me and Tillman comes up and jumps on the couch right next to her, so it's Tillman, Winnie, me, and it's been great, right? Or maybe you can see her like open up to where she's kind of playful with him. Then we're seeing a shift, okay? And I go by the owners. I'm like, well, if you feel comfortable and confident enough, like, hey, we think we're good, take the muzzle off, you know? And it would only be in situations where it's like they're gonna be together. And then when it comes to the e-collar, that's where things get tricky. So within the home, the goal is that we don't need the e-collar, okay? But dogs are opportunistic. So you guys drive?
Yep.
Been in the expressway? Do you go the speed limit?
No.
Okay. Most people don't,
Right.
because there's, unless you see a squad car.
Right.
And some people do, but it's a very small percentage of people. Unless you see a squad car, and then all of a sudden, everybody's going to speed limit. It's opportunistic behavior.
10 under the street limit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, same thing for dogs.
Yeah.
Think of that e-collar as a cop and a collar, okay? So when it's on, she's subdued, okay, can't be a brat, this and that, and then you remove it, and she's like, ha ha ha, I can like do whatever I want, right? Now, I do give other means of corrections, so that you don't become solely dependent on the e-collar that you can do within the home, okay? However, these corrections aren't always applicable in the sense of, it not only stops the behavior, but it resonates to the point where we don't see the behavior again, okay, as much as possible, because they're not, it can't match the degree of what an e-collar can do. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, so everything's played by ear, Okay, worst case scenario, and I give this to you because a lot of people like, they want a very certain thing, and I'm like, and I go like, I'm not saying that it's not possible, but this is worst case, this is best case, which is maybe what they want. And if you're not comfortable with the worst case, then, you know, because if we don't get here, then you're not going to be happy either way. Does that make sense? Is going forward, at least until Tillman, you know, crosses the rainbow bridge, she may need the muzzle with the e-collar whenever they're going to be in coexistence. It helps you keep the other guy safe, and it helps you stop anything should anything trigger, okay? But that's when awareness kicks in. Or you could be the point where it's like, yeah, they're coexisting, but yes, we have to still be aware. We have to watch for if there's a resource. We have to be a bit more mindful of things. There's also just a preventative control. So like, let's say you're gonna be cooking and you're gonna drop stuff. You can have her like down away from you across the room or whatever. She's not gonna move for the next 2 to 3 hours. Okay, so even if you drop stuff and the other dogs come for it, she's not gonna leave that area. So that's where obedience comes into play as well. So you have both. Behavior is going back to coexistence, harmony, being around each other, you know, being able to be on the couch with each other, no tension, right? That's behavioral stuff. Obedience comes into play when behavior isn't going as well as we would like it to be. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So you have both what I call prevention and intervention. Prevention would be, go over there, don't move, because I'm going to be dropping stuff, and I don't want you to start a fight again, okay? Intervention would be, you're in the kitchen, the dogs are in the kitchen too, and then you accidentally drop something, and you see them both look for it, and you're able to stop or intervene within that moment so that nothing happens, okay? So, and I have things that I teach, like I did a resource guarding case where what I teach is, again, the default relinquish is the owner would just drop stuff, and when the dog would go for it, she would remote the dog. So now when she drops stuff, the dog goes the other way. So I was like, all the other dogs can go over here, but not that one, because that's the one that's gonna start the fight. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And we can do that via e-collar as well. And that we can get to a point where it's just default behavior, because it's also something that you can reinforce without the e-collar. Okay, so again, that's the kind of that just secondary, or how do you say, the safety net in case like we forget, like holy crap, like we drop something and she's free to be loose. So I try to cover all these grounds because I know what can potentially happen. I've done this for 10 years and I've heard all the horror stories and I like to think I've worked with everything under the sun. That I see all aspects of it and I go, we're doing this for this for this, and then this for this. So then you should be covered on all fronts. So leash walking for sure, just for the discipline aspect of it. And then after that second class, we start delving into how do we reintegrate these guys together, okay? It's gonna be a bit awkward because we're gonna have to create situations, kind of forcing the discomfort, you know, and if like, I would highly suggest muzzling for this stuff is, all right, what happens if we bring Tillman on the couch right next to her, right? And we can teach the default where like when you see Tillman enter the room, you need to leave the space next to me. Get out of here.
Do you recommend a good muzzle? I got one
Ask
for
her.
her, and she was able to rip it out perfectly.
Yeah, it probably wasn't fitted correctly. It needs to be fitted very tight. But Baskerville, we have on my website, we'll send you the information. You're gonna wanna start muzzle conditioning immediately, okay? So muzzle conditioning is, like you said, she removed it. They're not meant to have things on their face.
Right.
Is to get her comfortable with it. Now, you would use food, start the counter conditioning process. It's possible by the time you need it, she's not gonna be ready for it. Then we do what I call force conditioning, okay, which is I use the remote collar. And they go, you can fight it all you want, but I'm gonna use this to correct you. And eventually the dog goes, crap, that's not worth trying to remove, okay? But I always suggest people, please do the counter conditioning because everybody always puts it off. And then it's the class the week before, and they're trying to high school project it, right? Like they did not the week before. And it's like, no, because this is this clear discomfort of something that is unnatural to them, okay?
It's like our our obedience training. When are we gonna set the next one? 2 weeks from now. Okay, let's really train the dog now together.
Right. No, this takes
needs to
time.
be every day.
Okay.
So I have just one quick question. So when it comes to like her, when we do the leash training, is that going to correct her like?
Reactivity.
Yeah.
I forgot about that, yes.
Yeah, okay.
So that's our reference point.
Okay.
So, talking about reactivity, So coming in, I could see how timid she was, I could see how insecure she was, okay? Is the reason why you're most likely seeing reactivity on the leash and not when she's off leash, is when she's on a leash, you remove flight response. We have 4 responses to stress: fight, flight, avoid, submission, okay? If she's on a leash, she can't run away, okay? She doesn't want to submit to it, and she can't avoid it, so that leaves fight, okay? So when she's off leash, if there was a threat, go on, okay? So, and all that insecurity, it can fuel the reactivity, okay?
So is the being in the car the fight one then too? Because what is that?
Yeah.
That's territorial.
Territorial.
Yeah, that's protecting a property. Okay, this is my space, you're too close.
Even
Okay.
just dogs walking down the street, she gets crazy like that?
Yeah, because you see the world as a human.
Right.
Okay, so if we put ourselves in a primitive state of mind, okay? If you go to the park and you see other people there, are you threatened?
No.
Why?
I'm just not.
It's a park.
Yeah.
It's part of it.
Yeah, we go there, it's a community setting,
It's
right?
standard.
Wolves. If a stray wolf wanders into another wolf's proper territory, they kill it.
Yep.
Okay? Her world, her family, you're moving territory as you walk. Okay? She's on a leash, flight response is not available. She sees another dog across the street, potential threat.
So is the paw up? That's an anxiety. That's
Unsure.
Huh?
That can be unsure, it can be about the lunch, depends on the
She
context.
does it a lot.
Yeah,
when
she does
sees
it
the
when she
dog.
sees another dog.
So I'll get her to sit. She'll sit there with me.
Mhm.
But she sees another dog.
And she
If I'm looking this way and the dog behind me, she's turning around looking.
Yeah.
She'll put her paw up.
That's
But then we
nervous.
like pet her, we're trying to like calm her, where we're like, it's okay, and then she'll eventually put her paw down, but it's like, you have to get her to like not be stressed, it's like,
Right,
She's
so
freaking out.
I wouldn't pet her though.
okay.
You would not?
Well, yeah, period. Because you tell her to sit, she sits, and what would you do to reinforce that? Aside from like food or a treat.
Give her a treat.
Pet her.
Pet her. Petting is a reinforcer,
Yeah.
okay?
Oh, so petting her, she does this. It's reinforcing. the-
Correct. Now you see the hand the paw come down, and it could come down for a number of reasons.
Because you're petting her.
Maybe the threat is past,
Mhm.
right? There's greater distance.
Mhm.
Maybe her brain went from one topic to another topic because remember light switch,
Mhm.
right? But when you're petting, you're saying, yes, you should feel unsure about the approaching dog.
Got it.
So in protection training, that's when we actively train dogs to be aggressive towards humans, but we control it. We have the agitator, right, the person that pissed the dog off, and we have someone holding the dog on a harness because we want nothing inhibiting the throat. We want the dog to really just grab up. And as they're lunging, good. We're petting because we want to see that again, okay? So I understand your intention.
Mhm.
Your intention is to console or to de-escalate, but really you're saying, yes,
Right.
keep doing this,
Got it.
okay? She needs to learn how to handle that just as it's happening, and we do that through remote collar. So it's possible that, so whenever, like let's say this was a reactivity case and we didn't have the internal stuff, okay? Say this was reactivity. Then I would have told you, we're gonna start with heel, again, because a lot of reactivity is the lack of knowing what to do, okay? Or having other things that are more concerning than me.
Mhm.
So with the heel, like earlier, like how tight it is and how strict it is, I make myself more concerning to the dog than the environment, okay? So let's say she sees the dog approaching, it's the thought of an impending threat, okay? There's no, how do you say, concrete reasoning behind it. She's just thinking, I'm a primal animal, and I'm with my owner here, and it's our safety or their safety. That's how she thinks, okay? Remote is real because it's a physical contraction that she feels. The dog approaching is a thought. It is not real. Okay, so somebody asks, are you afraid of a ghost or are you afraid of a serial killer? Serial killer is real. Ghost, maybe if I see one, okay? But I know that serial killers are concrete, so that's what I'm gonna be afraid of, okay? So same thing here, you're overriding that just irrational thought of potential threat with physicality that is real. So then she thinks like, okay, well I know if I lunge, this is gonna happen. I don't like this. but I don't like this either, so she has to do math. She has to weigh those options, and she's gonna go, I'm not gonna do anything. Ooh, super stressed, super stressed. It passes. Oh, I didn't get remoted, and nothing happened.
Right,
Oh,
right.
and we repeat, and we repeat, and we repeat, and eventually it's, oh, okay, cool. There's nothing to worry about. As long as I'm focused on dad or mom,
Yeah.
this happens, nothing ever happens. Nothing bad has ever happened,
Right.
okay? Because I get dogs, we actually have one that was doing a boarding training with us, but he had the GI issue. Perfectly friendly dog, got attacked by an off-leash dog, next day, dog aggressive.
Wow.
Because now he had a valid reasoning.
Yeah.
He was like, I got attacked by a dog, so I can't trust dogs anymore. But then it became all dogs.
And Tillman doesn't have that. Tillman, I mean, being attacked by her, like.
Right, because it was within the
Yeah,
home.
Yeah.
Well, I'm
Yeah.
saying, thank God he doesn't have that, so we
Yeah.
have two issues.
No, this was her walking her dog outside, random off-leash dog,
Oh.
right? So, because within the home, it's not a random dog.
Right.
It was her.
Right,
So there's already familiarity there.
Right.
Does that make sense?
yeah.
Yeah, so the heel should also resolve the reactivity. Now, it is possible, so ideally, so heel in general fixes about 70 to 80% of problems. That's why that's the first thing I always teach. Unless I know the dog is actively aggressive, which means if I come in the home, the dog just attacks, then I go, obedience isn't the problem here, this dog wants to hurt people, right? We correct that first, but then you do come back to the obedience because there has to be discipline. Every other case, 95, 98% of cases, it's the heel first. What does this fix? Okay, that's why it's usually by class 3, if there's other issues, like I have another case right now, same issue with humans. I go, we did 2 classes on heel, and we just did an in-home session with him this past Monday. Okay, because his dog has issues with people coming within the home, and we need to get the dog over that. But we needed a baseline. Okay. So same thing here, the reactivity ideally should be resolved by the healing command. And then let's say you tell me, hey Jesse, man, like reactivity is great, but she still lunges and barks when other dogs bark at her. And I go, that's normal, because it's a spectrum. Human reactivity tends to be the first thing that goes away. Then calm dogs. Excited puppy type energy is like in the middle. Other reactive dogs, and then sudden run-ins with dogs are end of spectrum. Those take the longest. Because one, if they're being reactive, they're throwing out threat, so then she's gonna throw a threat back, okay? So she's technically like valid in her response, right? But we can still disagree with it and stop it. When it comes to sudden run-ins, you can't plan for that. You turn the corner, dog, right? So you have to address the situation as it happens, and they also tend to be infrequent. And if you see another reactive dog, typically those people, unless they're training or have trained, want to leave the situation. So if they leave the situation before you can get her to resolve that reactivity and stop it, then she thinks my reactivity got that threat to move away. And now you've taken a step back, okay? That's all part of the process. Now, if the healing doesn't address the reactivity itself, then I go, okay, we need that anyways for foundation. Now when you see a dog, we're gonna correct her directly for the behavior. Okay, so there's direct and indirect approaches. What I did with those 2 dogs with the fighting inside the home was an indirect approach. I said, I know the problem's here, but we're gonna start here. This exercise that's completely not related, we're gonna see if it helps anything. And it helped them enter a room without fighting each other off the bat. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Direct approach is, okay, we did this, and they bring them in, and they still want to kill each other. Then again, okay, no biggie, they still need to learn what the e-collar is.
Yep.
Now we correct them from wanting to kill each other. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So there's no real cookie cutter way this is gonna work. I just always usually start with this baseline, because if it fixes 70 to 80% of problems, then that's what I'm gonna go to first, right? And then I go, what's left, and then how are we gonna approach it, with what we're seeing.
Do we think that her separation anxiety and like the peeing in the house and those things, like that behavior will change with the heel and like?
It's possible, but it's rare.
Yeah.
So what I would do there is we go to kennel training, because if she can't, so some dogs just can't handle the freedom.
So that's my concern with that is when I first got her, I'll take out my phone and show you, she had a cut on her face.
Yeah, like trying to
Get
get
it
out
out.
of the.
Sure.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So when there's no limitations to the dog, I had a dog chew off his own tail.
Oh my God.
Overnight, literally chewed off his own tail because it was so anxious in the kennel. Dogs break teeth, things like
That's not
that.
afraid of her, that she would have.
So I wouldn't just throw her in the kennel. We're gonna make an exercise of it. Okay, so like we have a dog here doing a boarding train from a rescue. They couldn't keep him in the kennel because he just kept breaking out of it, but then he also nearly killed the other dog in the home. Okay, so I was like, well, yeah, like clearly there was an issue because one, you couldn't keep him in the kennel, and then two, they kept scuffling, in the home, and then within 2 months, sent the dog to the ER, very near death. And I told the rescue, I was like, look, I'm like, if you're gonna bring this dog in and he's got that kennel issue, I need him on this specific day because that's when I have someone here to work with them the moment he comes in. No problem.
We just also don't want her, like, I don't want her to revert back to feel like we're doing what her past owners.
She's
you know
not
what I
feeling
mean?
it that way.
Okay.
Dogs will think
Let's say I want her to
future.
feel emotional, like, they're terrible, they're putting me back in the kennel, like, where I was before. Like, I don't want her to think that.
Yeah, dogs don't think that way. Okay, she's about right now.
Yeah.
So, and then when you do that, I understand your reasoning behind it, but you're taking a soft approach
Right,
towards a more serious problem.
Oh, correct.
And that's not gonna work,
right.
okay? So I have specific exercises for the kennel, okay? Now, it is rare, like I said, that the healing will resolve the kennel issue, because that's typically, one for her, if they kenneled her all the time, it was just like, because they always kenneled her, okay, potential. But a lot of times with dogs, it's the, how'd you say, there's too many rights, okay? Dogs don't have rights, they have privileges. So my dogs, if I kenneled them, and my dogs would be kenneled, this was years ago, because I would work so much, up to 16 hours a day, okay? And I would open the kennel, and I could leave, make a sandwich, come back, and they wouldn't leave the kennel. They would still be in there calm as can be. And I'd say, okay, Britt, can they come out? And then they go potty and all that stuff, and we come back inside. I never had any issue with it, okay? Because me opening the kennel door didn't mean anything. It wasn't until I said, now you can come out, okay? And for a lot of dogs, when they see that gate opening, it's like a guarantee they're gonna come out, or they're pushing, or they're forging, and it's all this craziness. That we need to stop. And then it's like, look, I can open this gate, but you might not come out for another 2 hours. So door open or closed does not matter, it's mental game. So then if there's like, oh, if it doesn't matter if he opens the door, there's nothing to get worked up about.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, and the other thing I would do is bar collar. A bar collar, which is the same as an e-collar, but it corrects when the dogs bark, and it'll help keep her taper down, okay? We had another case that came through, very severe separation anxiety case. Literally, they dropped, the same rescue dropped them off. I popped them in the kennel and I just went to go eat dinner. This dog sounded like he was fucking dying, okay? Yes.
We'll throw her in a kennel and walk away.
She does like this
I
weird
believe
like
you.
hyena, like, yeah, it's like a
Yeah.
crazy, and our beagle barks too, but he doesn't bark as often. Like she barks, like I work from home now because of COVID and everything, and we have a window, and she just will do laps and bark and blah, 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 and I'll be on the phone or something, and I'm like,
Yeah, so that's craziness,
yeah,
which is not in the kennel, and you put it in the kennel, that's why you have a problem,
yeah.
okay? I don't allow craziness, okay?
Oh, I hate it.
So when we're outside and we're playing fetch, you can be a dog, you can run around.
Yeah.
But when we're inside, when we're on a walk, when we're in the kennel, this and that, you're chill.
Do you think that there will be any distraction because our other dogs aren't necessary, like, putting her in a kennel versus our other dogs who are roaming free? Like,
It
is
can
there-
cause a little bit in the sense of like, it'll kind of entice her to like, oh, I want to be out. But if that was the case, then we would just remote her with the tradition we call her, because that's one that you control. So the bar collar
The
will.
bar collar shocks her when she barks, the e-collar is when I do it to her.
Correct, okay? So like, let's say we do the e-collar deal, right, and all that stuff, we do e-collar kennel, and then you're like, I'm gonna leave for an hour, you replace your e-collar with the bar collar, you leave, okay? Then you come back and she's chill, and you look at the counter, 2 bars. So now she's gonna create that relation of like, oh crap, like, I can be corrected even when you're gone. And then you go to like I have a client right now who finally was able to leave for 6 hours, and she just did it off the bat. Because same issue, I was like, we're gonna start with the heel, pop that bar collar on her, and I said, just live your life. And she's like, I came back, it was great. I was gone, with my boyfriend for 6 hours, and the dog only barked twice, and was completely calm when I came back. I'm like, there you go. Okay, it's just discipline. Okay. Now, is it possible that she could be super neurotic with the kennel? Yeah, but we won't know until we actively like try to confront that issue. Okay, but definitely, and what I do is that the fact that you work from home is also a big reason why she's so attached.
Yeah.
So what I've had all my new dog owners, all my new puppy owners do since COVID, I tell them, kennel your dog 9 to 5. If you're working from home, have your dog put away, kennel 9 to 5. They're like, but Jesse, I'm home. I'm like, yeah, until you have to go back to work, and it's gonna be a problem.
That's exactly what I was like, if I ever go back into the office, we're never gonna be able to leave her alone.
Yeah.
She's just so used to us being
And when we
around.
first got her, we were up in Michigan,
Winnie,
working from my lake house the entire time. We were always there.
Yeah.
We never left, she was always with us.
so it's like a
That becomes
total
her work.
extreme of like, she was in her kennel all day because the other person was never home or didn't, you know, didn't wanna let her out. And then you had us who were at home all the time, you have all this freedom now to like
Sure,
do what our other dogs are doing, you know?
sure, yeah, it's a balance.
Mhm.
I tell everybody, I was like, what does your life look like? They're like, well, I would work 9 to 5 and this and that. I'm like, all right, 9 to 5, your dog's in the kennel.
Yeah.
Because this month, next month, 6 months, at some point, I would assume we're gonna go back to normalcy.
Yeah,
You're gonna have to leave, and if you wait, again, high school project, right?
yeah,
Big problem,
yeah.
okay? And a lot of people turn around going like, Jesse, Jesus, just that 9 to 5 kenneling has made a world of a difference. I'm like, yes,
Mhm.
that's why I have a business.
When you do the 9 to 5 kenneling though, like, is there opportunity where you could reward them by not putting them in the kennel, or do you have to
No.
strictly?
They
stick
don't
with
like
that?
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't, she doesn't think like,
No.
yeah, she doesn't think like, oh, thanks, you know, for
Yeah.
like, you know, not coming today.
Yeah,
She honestly doesn't care.
right,
It's just she has not been formally kennel trained,
right.
okay? And that's what I'm here for, okay? So, 2 classes on leash walking. The kennel is gonna be a class in itself. It's possible at the end of the second class, because this is what I did with the other client, where I said, do this, just experiment with it. It was literally like a 10-minute, like, do this, this, and this, let me know what happens. And she came back, she was like, much better, and I said, okay, but it wasn't completely resolved, and I said, just bump your bark color number to 3 from 1, and then, since then, it's been no problem, okay? So it's pretty straightforward, because again, that bark color is gonna feel like the e-collar, right? So that cop's gonna be present now when you're gone, so she's like, all right, well, I can't get away with those shenanigans anymore, okay? The reintroduction to like Tillman and stuff like that, that's most likely a class or 2, because it's just information. It's, this is how we reintroduce, this is how we try to go back to normalcy, these are things to watch for, okay? And then we have resource guarding, okay? Which is simple to address. What makes it complicated is if we're trying to balance the dog still taking, like, let's say a bone and not resource guarding, okay? So I had a case that was a really extreme resource guarding case that ultimately ended up with the dog not wanting anything to do with bones, treats, antlers, none of that stuff, because he went to such a degree of resource guarding that it took me a lot to get him to finally cut the crap. That by the time I was like, look, I'm like, it was either he stops biting people over stuff, you know, or you try to work him, like, again, try to be soft and achieve the result at the same time. And I was like, we were not gonna get there, you know, and then the family was like, yeah, we get it, it's cool, like, we're very happy, we just don't want the dog to bite anybody. But I do get people that are trying to get both. And I go, you can't think that way. I'm not saying we don't try, because I do try. But at some point I go like, it's pointless. You know, like the dog doesn't care, like the dog doesn't think like, man, I remember when I used to get antlers and bones, you know? That's human stuff. Dogs don't do that,
Yeah.
okay? It was the humans that were,
What's
Their-
your,
what
it's
their
your,
thought
it's your
process.
empathy for, like, you putting yourself in their shoes of like, I have empathy where I'm like, oh, I feel bad for her. And
sure,
You don't
She
just,
doesn't think like that.
right,
No, and
right, emotional.
it's crazy, like, I get people that literally turn their lives around for their dog, and the dog bites them. And they're like, I don't get it, like, I give this dog so much love and attention and all the treats and this and that, why would the dog bite me? I'm like, clearly the dog doesn't view the relationship the same way.
Right.
You know, like, the dog, that doesn't mean anything to the dog.
You're embarrassed.
So, yeah, so it's pretty common. And like all this here, right?
Yeah.
Like, this is actually like frustration and boredom. For me, like, that's nonsense behavior,
Yeah.
okay? That would all
I
be
like
corrected. And easy to address, okay, once we get to that point. But you have to be consistent, because like, let's say you're trying to be strict here, but then like, you know, you're working at your computer and then she comes over like, hey mom, and you're like, hi sweetie, and you start doing that stuff, that actually negates
All the training.
everything. Exactly, because she's like, oh, I can come to you whenever I want, and you're really a softie for me. Does that make
So
sense?
this is training for me, is what you're saying, because
Yeah,
I'm the softie.
She's the soft one.
It's, you know, we are conditioning and putting rules to her, but at the same time, you have to change some things. I'm not saying be mean to your dog.
Right.
I'm just saying choose when you reward her.
Mhm.
Okay, a lot of people give their dog affection, like, for not, dogs have nothing to earn it.
Mhm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So like here, she like came up to you and sat down and you're like, hey, and that's subconscious. People aren't aware of that. And they're like, holy crap, I really do just pet my dog just anytime.
Uh-huh.
And me, I pet my dogs on my terms, or if they've done something well.
Mhm.
I make them work for it. So then my affection means more, but also my presence, my authority of like, you know, if I'm just giving things willy-nilly, I mean nothing.
Right.
But when it's like, hey, do this, oh, good job, and I pet them, it's a very different
Yeah.
association.
I think I've never had that type of relation, like my other dogs were never trained, like I had never had dogs before, so like, I'm very much a pushover and I'm very aware of that.
Sure.
Like, I know that I am for sure.
Oh, yeah.
I'm also very nervous as well with like her and Tillman. I also have type of like, I'm having anxiety about it where I'm uncomfortable and I feel like they feed off of that too. So it's like, I'm also removing myself out of the situation because I'm like, I don't know what to do. Like, you know, and that's why we did kind of the obedience. We thought it was behavioral training, but
You thought.
more of an obedience training because I just don't know those things. They don't come natural for me to like, I didn't know that stuff. He did training with his other dogs. So it's like,
Sure.
it's all new to me. So like when you're saying those things, it totally makes sense. And like, I understand what you're saying, but it is a habit. And it's like,
Yeah.
my dogs have always been like my companions and, you know, like.
No, yeah, that's what people get dogs for, is companionship.
Yeah,
But the
right.
problem is, dogs don't need companionship. You know, it's the humans.
Mhm.
And that's what's kind of made the dog world kind of
Yeah.
flip on its head. You know, because way back when, it was like dogs were just dogs.
Mhm.
You know? And now it's like dogs are family members. Dogs have Instagram accounts.
Right.
Dogs are now media personalities.
Right.
You know?
Right.
And when people see these pictures of dogs, I get it and I appreciate it because I love dogs, but I also see dogs for dogs.
Mhm.
But it's funny when I go through my feed and I see dogs that I follow, the clients' dogs, and I'm like, that dog used to bite people. That dog's a super leash reactive. You know, that dog's a jackass. You know, but the picture is like this just happy smiling dog. It's got 1,000 likes and all these comments like, oh my god, this dog's so cute. And I'm like, yeah, but you ever notice on Instagram it's never them with other dogs.
Right.
It's just them. I'm like, that dog's probably antisocial.
Yeah.
You know, but people see it for face value.
Yep.
And then they also take what they see at face value as 100% of the dog.
Yeah.
You know, like right now you're seeing me as me in a dog training mode, blah, 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 right? But I get mad, I get sad, I get drunk. You know, there's other aspects to me, but someone might say, Jesse's like the most straightforward, transparent, honest person, and I am. And they may think like I'm like this great human being, but I'm like, I've gotten drunk and said some stupid shit sometimes.
Yeah.
You know,
You don't know that.
I've been not drunk and said stupid shit. You know? So, but with dogs, it tends to be a very face value type thing. And that's why I'm here, is like I'm just very, you know, direct to people. I don't tell people what they want to hear, tell them what they need to hear. That's why I gave you, I said earlier, you know, worst case scenario could be e-collar muzzle for who knows how long, okay? Whenever they're interacting, because maybe you feel better or whatever. Or it could be all the way to the point of like, yeah, Jesse, they coexist. And they're opening up to each other and this and that because we got structure. Or it could be they coexist, they ignore each other. If Tony enters the room, she leaves the situation, there's no tension. You know, there's a lot of answers. It's just what answer or what answers is the owner willing to accept. Because I do get people that go like, Jesse, I don't like the fact of having a muzzle on my dog. Then I tell them, well, find another trainer because I'm going to work with your dog with a muzzle because your dog is that dangerous.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And I do come across these personality types where it doesn't make sense to me because the dog's already bitten 5 people.
So I don't like it, but I will do it 100%. I was one that went out and got it.
Yeah.
Good.
It's not that, yeah, it's not, I just don't know what it is, so it's like, I know what a muzzle is, I know what that is, but I think putting it on your dog, you think automatically like, I'm hurting them, or I'm like doing something that's negative, or, you know what I mean, like, I think you just look at that like, oh, my dog is aggressive and is gonna bite people, and.
Right. And there's I've had clients whose dogs they've never seen a lick of aggression for, and they muzzle the dog still when they go to the vet. They go, just in case.
Yeah.
They're like, I don't know. They're like, I've never seen it, but just in case. And I'm like, that is absolutely smart.
Yeah.
Okay, because maybe the dog's been great at the vet for 5 years, but then that one day, it's a bad day, something's off, and there is an attempt. You completely prevented it, you know? So, it's just part of the process. It keeps Tillman safe. It keeps your anxiety levels down because you're not worried about if there's an attempt.
Right.
Are we gonna be at the vet again, things like that. I had a client a couple of years ago, they had 5 pits. Wife was gonna have a baby in like a month. And the foster fail that they had for like 6-8 months attacked their other pit, okay? So I came in, and he actually went after me as well in the session, and they'd never seen any kind of human aggression from him before. And it's because I corrected him, which I never do during the consult. I usually just observe, but I had to correct because I saw a situation. I'm like, this is gonna be bad. So then we started the training, and I told him, muzzle train your dog, do it, right? And he just kept like, oh, I've never this, and I'm like, do it. And finally, he finally gave it, right? And then what happened was, we were working with him, I was working with the owner and the dog, and during the training, the dog looked at him and growled at him. And he went, whoa. He's like, I've never seen that before. And I'm like, yeah, because now you're bullying him. Now you're telling him you have to do this. And that's where the problem is. But he had already started muzzling him at that point. I'm like, do you see why I said muzzle your dog?
Because he's gonna flip on you.
So then, fast forward a couple of weeks, they actually had the baby, I didn't see them, and then fast forward another 2 weeks, he texted me to say they put the dog down, okay? So I was like, calling him, hey, what happened? He's like, hey man, he's like, I know I fought you in that muzzle, but I'm very thankful that you forced me to muzzle my dog, because what happened was, his wife, the baby, the dog was at the edge of the bed, and she moved for the TV remote, and he was muzzled, and he attacked her hand, okay? And he got a few bites in, okay? But he was like, it's nothing what it would have been had he not been muzzled, you know? And they made that decision themselves. Like, I don't tell people to put their dogs down. I just say, look, this is worst, this is best case scenario. You have what everybody else has told you. There's an answer, it's whether or not you're willing to accept it, right? And of course, you have to think about his newborn baby and stuff like that. So I'm like, look, no judgment, you know, I get it, whatever. But it took me, like, I really had to be on him, like, dude, muzzle your dog, muzzle your dog. Like, he's not playing. He attacked your dog twice, it's bad, muzzle your dog, right? Don't trust your dog too much. And then finally, it clicked.
Yeah.
And had not been for that, you know, totally, could have been totally worse.
Yeah.
Okay? So I'm not saying this to make you paranoid, it's just awareness.
Yeah.
Okay? I really don't know how it's gonna work out. I have an idea. I come in and go, okay, cool, this is making progress, we go to this, we go to this, we go to this. But sometimes, you know, there's a wrench, you know, and I go, okay, like, I have an answer for this, are you wanting this to work? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I think in terms of like the time and cost and stuff, it really just comes down to how much one control you want. I really just went down over, so the way I operate is there's like the bare bones of like, this is what you need to work on the problem at hand. And then there's, well, this is what you need, but then there's additional like things that we can do, like just stationary control. Like I said, having like over there, you're not gonna move for the next 2 or 3 hours. I can be over here. I'm not worried about an interaction, okay? So bare bones would be my 6-week course. I'm predicting 2 classes for the healing. The reactivity is like a variable. Okay, it's pretty straightforward once we get the first 2 classes in, because then you're my feedback, and I'm like, okay, this is what we're going to do to address it. There was the resource guarding, which is a class. It's very simple, but you just have to practice the exercises. And then about maybe 1 to 2 for the reintegration in the home, and then trying to go back to normalcy as best you can. If you do 9 or a 12-week program, that's where we can start. I prioritize then what I think you would need depending on how much time we have. So if we went to a 9-week program, then I would say we want stationary control, which is the don't move for the next, you know, couple hours or so, whatever. And then the 12-week program is we teach as much of the other obedience. The next most important thing is just recall. in case she ever got off leash or anything like that,
Yeah.
that you're able to get her to come back, and then the other commands as, depending on how much time we have for things, okay? So I always prioritize what the core problem is first. Once it's like, hey Jesse, we're doing well, like we're making progress, and maybe it's class 4 or 5, then I go, cool, I'll give you kind of homework each week as we progress, and then we're gonna start teaching these other things. We build her skill sets for like the recall, the down, the stay, and all that stuff, okay? In terms of the collar that she would need, the Dog 2300, which Maria will send you this information. It's a fully waterproof system, 3/4 mile range, so plenty of range for the standard family pet.
So $2,300?
No, that's the model.
Holy shit.
I know, so like, whoa.
Dog 2300 is the model. It runs about 27 with tax. Okay, so it's a little pricey. However, they last a really long time. I've had mine for 8 years, so you know.
Do you keep it on your dog all the time?
No.
Oh, okay.
So, like I said earlier, when you need it, you have it. Okay, now you're working on internal issues, so most likely in the beginning she's going to be wearing it a lot. There is a special adapter that they make for extended wear because there's 2 probes, and if the probes are in one spot for too long, we can get what's called pressure sores. It's not from the stim, it's from 2 things poking in the neck for a really long time. So like people get bed sores when they're bedridden, they have to rotate them and stuff to try to prevent that. But it's the same thing, okay? So the comfort adapter is meant for extended wear, so we don't have to worry about that stuff. And then she'd only be wearing it when you need it. So if you're doing those integration things, if she's in the kennel and you're working from home and you can address her or whatever, she'd be wearing it extensively and stuff like that. And then as time progresses, we might find like, oh, she's doing great in the kennel. We don't need it there anymore. Oh, she's doing well like in this context. So we're going to try to just start pulling back on it there.
So in the kennel, would we just do the bark collar then, or would you?
Yeah, bark and e-collar, right? But if she works from home, you can actually use your e-collar, but then when she barks or does something that you disagree with, you would just correct yourself.
We're gonna need that bark collar for when we want to leave the house.
Yes, and then, yes, for sure, then you get a bark collar, okay?
How much is the bark collar, do you know?
The bark collar, and this is a high-end estimate, is $200 with the adapter, okay? So the collar itself is like $150, but the adapter, again, for extended wear, is so that like if you left for 6 hours, she's not gonna develop pressure sores, okay? And for me, I'm just like, I understand it's more money, but you know people are gonna put the bark collar on the dog for a period of time. Why wouldn't you just make it a part of the collar?
Do you ever have issues with dogs, like trying to scratch them off or chew them off or like do stuff like that, or they know that that's kind of, it's a negative, so I don't want to touch it because I'm scared I'm gonna like get
not that they associate that touching it makes anything happen, but they associate like that squad car, that cop, like, oh, this is on, I have to be on better behavior.
Okay.
So my theory would be if you did release walking and then you popped her in the kennel with the collar on, we may not see anything, okay? Which is good,
Yeah.
and then I go, great, now we can just smack a bark collar and if she barks, like it'll do its work, and she's like, oh crap, there's still consequence. She doesn't know that's only when she barks.
Yeah.
She just knows there's consequence,
Got it.
okay?
Okay.
And so going back earlier, when we had that extreme separation anxiety case, he had to be kenneled with a bark collar, okay? If he had the bark collar, he'd literally go in, lay down, go to sleep. If he didn't have the bark collar, he'd start with like pushing his nose to the kennel, moaning, twirling a lot. It just kept them chill, So I told the rescue, like, look, that's his answer. And as long as you can find someone who's willing to like say like, okay, cool, this is what this dog needs, you're golden, okay? So, so then with the 9-week, I work on stationary stuff. With the 12-week, definitely want to incorporate the recall and then teach whatever skill set we have time for. But walk with me or the heel, the come and call, and the stationary don't move from this area. It's just 3 commands, but that's like the kind of core foundation. And then if there's more time for the other stuff, then I teach more stuff. Okay, but we're prioritizing the behavioral stuff first, and then once we feel like we got a grip on that, then I go, now we can start doing these other things alongside the behavior. Okay, questions?
So we'll kind of see how it goes when we're doing the integration. Would that be something where we would bring Tillman, like, will we do that in our house, or would it be?
Yeah, so unfortunately because of COVID, obviously it's changed a lot of things.
Yeah.
I built my business doing home to home, okay? The problem is I see up to 8 people in a day.
Mm-hmm.
So if I went to a home and that person happened to have COVID, and then I go to see 6, 7 other people, now I've just like
Yeah.
You're a master.
Yeah.
You're a super spreader.
So, so that's why we've been training at Oz Park
Oh,
with a lot of our clients, right, for the obedience stuff. And for the in-home stuff, we've been doing a couple things. One is I can do it via Zoom, and I just see everything. That's what we did with the 2 dogs. And I can coach you through it, okay? E-collar is super simple. It's why I'm able to do this, okay? And then I can explain everything via Zoom. I give you your homework, you try it out, and then if everything's going great, you're like, hey, Jesse, you know, things are good in the home. Then we can work on resource guarding, same thing, that can be done over Zoom as well. It can also be done in person. But the main thing of like the integrating can be done in that fashion. Now, we are just opened up in-home sessions again, but it's on a limited basis, okay? Because now, since I solely operate more so from Oz or my facility, is now going home to home pulls me away from how I operate now. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So, so there's 2 different rates. Maria will fill you in on all this stuff. So we have an in-home rate, which you can do for all your sessions. And then we have the at the Oz Park or at my facility rate. And then you can do it, you know, where you just book one where I come into home to help with the integration and the rest are all done, you know, at Oz or whatever, or Zoom. Or you can say, okay, I'm gonna do all of our lessons at home, and I go, okay, no problem. But then we look at my schedule, because then I'd have to fit it, so then I see you guys, give myself time, and then go to see the rest of my clients.
When you, this might sound stupid, but all of the sessions, we'll be doing those with you.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's not like we dropped her off and we're like, we'll see you in 6 weeks.
That's a board and train, yeah,
Okay.
which I wouldn't recommend here, because the problem is in the home. Okay?
That's what we thought we were gonna have to do, so
Yeah.
that's why
The way we can help is we can get like the core like obedience down, and we can get the resource guarding down. Ultimately, she's gonna have to reintegrate with the home.
Got it.
And you learn more from doing it yourselves, okay? It takes longer, but you learn so much more, okay? If it was just like the reactivity thing, and none of that issue within the home, then I would say, sure, you know, it's just one behavior, it's a pretty straightforward behavior, because she's fine off leash, right? Now, if she wasn't fine off leash, and she was like actively going after dogs even then I would say this is something you want to do yourselves. Not that we wouldn't work with that case, but, and board and train is more expensive, by the way.
Yeah.
Like, I make more money doing that.
Right.
But it doesn't help you,
Right.
okay? You need to leave the classes going, I feel prepared
Sure.
to have these dogs together
Yeah.
for the next 5 years,
Right.
okay?
Yeah.
Because I'm wishing Tillman a
You just
very
need
long.
5 years.
I know.
I was gonna say, you should be happy about that.
I read something that a beagle was alive until he was 20, so it's possible.
There you go. Right, 7 years, is that correct?
Yeah, right.
So, yeah, it's all about, you know, when I work with my clients, I work with them, and ideally I don't want to hear from them again, because it means I've educated them to that degree, okay? You're always more than welcome. You always have my technical support. I did have a client reach out from like 3 years ago because they got a new dog and they were fighting, and I just texted them. And I was like, try this out. And then 2 weeks later, they're like, Jesse, it worked. I'm like, there you go, thumbs up. So yeah, so you always have my technical support. And then if anything else pops up, it's, you know, again, if something else would pop its ugly head up, and you're like, Jesse, this happened, we need to detour. I'm like, all right, we detour. But we may not be able to cover everything, you know, in terms of the length of time that you choose.
Yeah.
So, anything else?
No. So we need to go out and get a cage?
She would need most likely a 36-inch kennel.
36-inch kennel.
Correct.
You read this out?
Sure, if I have time, did I?
Your handy dandy notebook? Oh, I don't have a pen on me.
I do have a pen.
We need a kennel, 36-inch kennel, an e-collar,
And Maria will send you the make and model.
Okay,
You
good.
can get it on Amazon.
and then the bark collar.
The bar color, yeah. And then we can send you that information.
So
Should-
when you put her in a kennel, I've seen people do this, they put blankets over it. Do you want it to be dark, or do you want her to be able to see out of that? I've always been curious about that, just because I don't understand.
I am indifferent to it.
Okay.
Okay, now I don't do it for the sake of like babying the dog. Okay? Like, so for me, there's no wrong answer.
Okay.
I just care about where it's coming from. Because people tend to do things too much from a consoling, soft side. And I say, just, if you do it and it works, okay, cool, but I don't like the babying of the dog, okay? So like I've had people whose dogs have kennel anxiety and they're like, I just leave my dog in the kitchen with the baby gate and the dog doesn't bark. I go, all right. I mean, that's not my solution,
Yeah.
but to fix the
If
problem.
it works, it works.
But then just know if you have to leave your dog at a boarding facility, it's gonna be a problem. Or two, if you leave your dog with somebody to watch and they have to kennel the dog, their problem,
Right.
okay? So that's how I view it. And if they go like, no worries, I'll just pay someone to come stay at my place, I'm like, all right, cool, then I don't care,
Right.
Right.
okay? So I would just pop her in the kennel and then just make her tolerate it until she's like, all right, well, I guess I have no option, but it is what it is. And I'm pretty confident that once you start the e-collar, the bar collar, it's gonna be pretty straightforward. And the fact that you work from home actually gives you a bit of leeway because you can correct things that the collar can't, right? If she starts to nose at the kennel, you can correct that because you're working from home all day, right? And some people will set up a baby cam, you know, so they can keep an eye on their dogs and stuff as they work, so they can correct them as needed.
I'll get that.
And then they're not expensive either now, they're like $35.
Yeah.
You can get a pretty good quality one.
Oh, you want
But definitely 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, whatever that work schedule would look like, you want to start replicating once you get everything in place. The overnight stuff, whatever, I'm kind of indifferent to. I only care about that.
She sleeps in her bed.
Yeah, I was gonna say, she sleeps in her bed.
Okay.
Is that
What
like?
about the other two?
The beagle sleeps in her bed too.
Yeah.
Okay.
He
But
sleeps
he
outside her
sleeps-
and
he
she'll sleep at her
sleeps,
feet.
yeah, at her
The other one sleeps on the ground to the couch in her bedroom.
Okay, has there been tension there?
No?
So we also do interfere though. I mean, like this morning, she came and she jumped on the bed and Tillman was laying with me and I just put my arm up and then, you know, like,
Well, that's
Just-
there's never been tension.
no, I'm just saying I'm cognizant of them
Yeah,
right
and you're
now.
being
So like
selective,
I'm being
yeah.
proactive to just make sure there is no tension. But no, there's never been an
There's
attack
never
or
been
anything.
tension like that around the bed.
Okay. I don't really care. I know some places you read online, like, don't let your dog sleep in the bed, don't let your dog go out the door first, and that's all BS. Okay? Just discipline your dog like a dog would, which is, you know, physicality.
Yeah.
So, now in my book, personally, when I bring a new dog home, I give them a year before they start to get any privileges like that. Okay, because dogs do see this, right? Because Tillman and what's the little Winnie?
No, Lily.
Lily, they're the senior dogs. They've been there,
Yeah,
you know? And then she just comes in, it's like, you get the same rights as them.
yeah,
And that can cause,
yeah.
how do you say, kind of a gap in like, what the, right?
Yeah.
My dogs themselves would be like, the hell's going on here? You know? And so by having that structure of like, yeah, you're bottom of the barrel, actually helps a lot with these types of things. It's already been done, so I really don't care about it. But you can always change things as well, where it's like, you know what, you've been a jackass, and now you need to earn these things back again.
Okay.
And then it's just, I remove all these privileges, she's not gonna think about it, she's not gonna be like, oh, like,
I used to be able to do this.
Exactly.
Dad.
I think I just
You
just
think
think
she's a human.
emotional, yeah, emotional.
and most people do.
Yeah,
That's
we're
what I
like,
believe that.
they feel bad.
Other questions?
I don't think so, I think I'm good, this is.
I actually feel a lot better now.
Good. If you, I don't know if you've seen our work, but if you go to our YouTube channel, like I said, we've been recording everything. If you want to see what the training looks like, I suggest just going to my YouTube channel. You can go to my website, just click on a new video. And I usually recommend a lesson 1 because it's labeled. It'll be like Winnie, lesson 1, heel, and like a little description. Because the dog doesn't know what's happening, the owner doesn't know what to do. It's completely, everybody's like, what's going on?
Yeah.
And you see how it progresses and just how effective the e-collar is. It also gives you an idea of how it's done and all that stuff. And
I watched your video of dog aggression.
oh yeah, Baskerville.
I watched your video of,
Basker?
Baskerville.
Yeah.
I watched your video of the dog aggression. It was like a pit bull with maybe your dog, and you had a muzzle on it, and it was, they didn't get
Oh, they're
along.
interacting on it.
Yeah,
I
they're
saw
like
that, too.
interacting, I don't know what video.
I have a lot of videos with that.
Yeah,
It's just under the page where you have a behavioral, you
Yeah,
have
like
3
the-
videos on it.
Oh,
One's a
sure,
pit bull
sure.
that
One's a pit bull
It
with
comes
the-
in and then you let the other dogs in, and he comes in and let him in, and the other pit bull walks in and comes in their territory and just looks around and.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. That's probably Frankie's video. That's the old one. That's when I was skinnier.
Hazel was a dog? Maybe not.
Frankie?
No.
No, it was 2 girls, I thought. Stop. Come on.
2 girl kitties?
Yeah, one had a muzzle on and one didn't.
There was
And
a
one,
group
one
of-
seemed like
there was
it
a
was,
group
no,
of
no,
pit
no.
bulls.
No, the video I saw was just one, it was one dog and another dog.
It'd be funny if you guys talking about another trainer and I'm just like taking the credit, like, yeah, it was me.
No. It was you for sure. It was you, because it's your same, it was you. It was your same demeanor. But yeah, there were 2 pit bulls. I don't know, I'll have to look at it again. But yeah, I watched that video, because I was like, oh, maybe that's what Winnie needs.
If you go to my YouTube channel, I have a playlist called Client or Dog Training Highlights, and that's where I go more in depth with training sessions. And I'll show like the first class to the second class type of thing.
Okay.
So that's actually, those are good videos to watch.
Okay.
Otherwise, any lesson one is pretty good because it's just, again, nobody knows what they're doing but me. It's very simple, everything's done through verbal coaching now. I don't touch the dog.
Oh, okay.
Which has been working out great simply because of e-collar.
Mhm.
And you learn so much more because it's purely you.
Mhm.
You know, like you're screwing up and I'm coaching you through it, and you're like, oh, okay, that's how I fix this.
Mhm.
Because then when I'm not around, you need to know those things.
Mhm.
So,
For sure.
okay. Anything else?
I don't think so.
No, I feel a lot better though.
Yeah,
Good.
just,
Glad to hear it.
This isn't working.
Oh, the prong, yeah. So prongs are
That's what I
great.
use for my golden. But
Sure.
she's also a golden, so she's like.
when it
using
works for Lily, like Lily pulls on leash and she needs that, but
Yeah.
Winnie, I don't know that it's doing anything different.
So with the prong colors, I would, like, 'cause that one's probably the wrong size. They have her in a 2.25. That looks like a 3mm. And it was hanging too low. Like, it was like down here, it looked like, right?
So we went to the vet and they
And they
told
said
us
to
it was
take-
too tight.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
So we added a prong on
I
it.
thought it wasn't too quick.
it's supposed to be up here.
Yeah, and they said that to us, and then so I was like, oh, well, they told me at the vet to take a prong off.
Yeah, because even that actually looks much better.
And that's not what she had before, but we
That's
added
what
it
Tommy
because the
Never
vet said
had
it, and I was
anything.
like, I don't want them calling somebody on me or like
No.
saying something weird.
That's know about, vet stuff.
Yeah.
When it comes to diet or behavior, no.
Yeah.
Because I had a client that the vet was like, e-collar is going to make your dog more aggressive, blah, 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 like all this stuff. And they made them super paranoid. And they had booked a consultation. I was like, well, we don't refund the money after, 24, 48 hours or whatever my terms say. And I was like, but you have that consultation, like you paid for it. I'm not going to take your money. So she booked the consultation, and coincidentally, she was a physical therapist. So within like 2 minutes of being there, and I was like, yeah, e-collar is a TENS unit. She's like, what? She's like, then I fucking shot people all day. And I was like, my veterinarian said it was electrocution. I'm like, well, it just tells you what your veterinarian knows.
Yeah.
She'll try to bite this collar, this leash off right now.
Yeah.
She just tried this.
Oh, like the prong collar?
No,
No,
no.
she'll just bite this off.
Oh,
Put the
sure.
Leash on. She's
Yeah,
trying to
she's
bite
just
it
being a
off.
brat.
Yeah.
So.
She is a brat.
She is for sure, but she's cute.
Until she's biting.
That's
Yeah,
true.
until she bites your favorite dog.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, when that happened, yes, I was the first one to say get her out.
So, were we all getting in contact with?